victory over the Brooklyn Nets at Barclays Center on Monday. You're going to have to bear with me a little bit because as of 2 hours ago, I actually tested positive for COVID. So I'm not feeling overly great. I've got a bit of a sore throat. I'm also not feeling that bad. COVID can sound bad, I suppose. But, just a bit of a sore throat and we'll be right. But I'm still not in a great shape necessarily. At least the Warriors got a win and exacted some revenge for the disastrous loss to the Toronto Raptors on Sunday, which kind of seeped through to the opening period of this game. Of course, the Warriors were absolutely mauled in the final minute 43 of regulation and then overtime in Toronto. Got outscored by, 21 in the last 6 minutes 43 of that game, technically. So that kind of went into this matchup where the Warriors found themselves down, I think, 28-15 after 8 minutes. And fortunately, they kind of bounced back pretty quickly. A Jimmy Butler-led second unit got them back on even terms, basically at the end of the first quarter. And then from there, it was a pretty tight game throughout. Both teams played reasonably well, I suppose. Brooklyn, on paper, you think of this young team that really shouldn't give you too much trouble, but they have been the best defensive team in the league this month, have won 7 of their past 10 games going into this, had won 3 of their last 4 games. So it presented as a tricky game for the Warriors. And fortunately, they were able to pull it out because it was on a knife's edge there for quite a little bit. The Warriors, come the fourth quarter, always kind of had the edge, and Steph had enough brilliant shot making and Jimmy got to the free throw line enough to allow the Warriors to get the job done. And of course, Steve Kerr went really, really deep into his bench, used all 14 players available to him except for Jonathan Kuminga, which, if that doesn't signal to you that this guy's literally might not play again for the Warriors, literally might not play another second for the Golden State Warriors, Jonathan Kuminga. I know we're just over 2 weeks away still from him becoming trade eligible, but if he's not going to play on either side of a back-to-back against youngish, long, athletic teams in the Raptors and the Nets, then when is he going to play, really? He's just hoping for an injury, and even then, I'm not sure that's necessarily going to gift him a spot in the rotation. We saw Guy Santos off the bench early in this one. We saw Pat Spencer getting minutes after 2 straight games out of the rotation. We saw DeAnthony Melton back, obviously. We even saw Buddy Hield still get minutes, which I didn't think was going to happen with Melton back in. Trace Jackson-Davis, well, if you've ever seen instant regret over a guy not playing the night before, this was probably it, because I thought TJD was one of the biggest positives in this game. His third quarter stint wasn't great. He had a turnover and missed a layup in the space of 30 seconds during the third quarter. But his first half, he was one of the big reasons why the Warriors got back in the game. I think he had 9 points, 3 rebounds, a couple of blocks in the first half alone, finished with 11 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 2 blocks, a plus 10 in nearly 22 minutes. And when you look at the bench unit, that's what got it done for the Warriors, aside from, again, the shot making of Steph, 8 of 15 shooting, 5 of 12 from deep, 27 points. Jimmy, 11 of 12 from the free throw line, 21 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. And Jimmy really anchored those second units. But you look at the production from Trace, as I speak about, DeAnthony Melton, 10 points, 8 rebounds, 2 steals, 4 of 6 shooting, plus 26, game high plus 26 for DeAnthony Melton, who's strung a couple of really good games together now. If you go back to the Christmas Day game against Dallas, where he was really good, the 3-ball still hasn't been great, but defensively been very solid and still finding ways to impact the game with his fairly versatile skill set. It must be said, Will Richard got to 10 points as well, 3 rebounds, a couple of steals, 4 of 7 shooting from the floor. And Gary Payton II also had 10 points, pods 7, 2, and 2 in 20 minutes off the bench as well. So the Warriors got production from their bench unit in a way that the Nets really didn't. And this was probably the ideal outcome, you would say, for the Warriors, given that Michael Porter Jr. and, well, particularly Michael Porter Jr., but also, also Nick Claxton as well played very well. And kind of, if Mike Dunleavy Jr. was looking on, it's yeah, you can understand why those guys are potential trade targets leading into the deadline. Again, particularly Porter, whose $38 million salary makes a Kuminga, Buddy Hield, Moses Moody trade package with a first-round pick or 2 kind of thrown in there. Makes a little bit of sense. 27 points for Porter, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, 10 of 18 shooting from the floor, 5 of 9 from three-point range. Thought he was excellent. And then Nick Claxton did a bit of everything as well. 15 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks, including a couple off like three-point jump shots as well. 7 of 9 shooting from the floor, just 1 of 3 from the free throw line. But those two guys are very impressive for Brooklyn, along with the rookie Demon as well. 23 points, 7 of 14 shooting from three-point range. He was excellent. But the bench unit for Brooklyn, look at these numbers. Cam Thomas, a minus 21 in 19 minutes. Danny Wolf, minus 15 in 20 minutes. Daron Sharp, minus 14 in 12 minutes. Nolan Traore, minus 21 in 15 minutes. And Drake Powell, minus 19 in 17 minutes. So they're young guys, obviously. That's going to happen. But this was really about the Warrior bench compared to Brooklyn's. It was interesting that the Nets shot 18 of 42 from three-point range, 42.9%. And if you went into this game thinking that Brooklyn were going to shoot and make 8 more threes than the Warriors and actually take 9 more threes as well in this game, then you would have thought, geez, the chances of the Warriors winning this game are probably going to be fairly minimal. But fortunately, the Warriors were efficient inside the arc. They only shot 10 of 33 from three-point range, but shot 41 of 77, 53.2% from the floor overall. So got it done in a different manner, which we've seen a couple of times now. If we go back to that Orlando game where the Warriors really dominated points in the paint and didn't really do it through threes in that game either, they outscored Brooklyn 56-30 in points in the paint, which was a huge turnaround from what we saw 24 hours ago against the Raptors, where I think it was 70-40 in Toronto's favor. Rebounds, obviously, the Warriors got the job done as well. Points off turnover, the Warriors also got it done. So this is just a fact. When the Warriors have less turnovers than the opposition, they generally get a favorable result, and that's what happened in this game. Brooklyn had 15 turnovers. Golden State had 13. So just a solid game, you would say, from the Warriors. And good to get a win under the belt after the disaster that was that game in Toronto yesterday, which I'm not fully over. I'm still, if anything, this almost makes it more disappointing because had they held on, which they should have, they led by 7 with a minute 43 to go in that game. Had they just held on in that game and won this one, the Warriors would be now riding a 5-game winning streak. There'd be, 2 games above 500? Or 3, I should say. They're 17-16 now, so they'd be 18-15 had they won that game. And therefore, things are starting to roll a little bit, which is not surprising necessarily given this schedule. Like, you look at Brooklyn, and yes, this was a tricky game, but you look at Brooklyn on schedule and you think that should be a win. I looked at the Toronto game yesterday and thought that should be a win, but unfortunately this team is not really capitalized on all the games they should have won this season. I know the graphic came up on the broadcast a couple of times in terms of how many leads the Warriors have thrown away, how many fourth quarter leads the Warriors have thrown away this season. So glad they were able to turn that around a little bit and hold on. There was a brief period there with 3-4 minutes to go where I think they were up 11 and then the Nets got a couple of buckets and might have cut it to 5 at one point. And you're like, geez, there's still 3 minutes on the clock here. Things could get tight, but fortunately they got the job done down the stretch. Steph had that magical and one, which, I mean, the refereeing on him in this game was questionable because there were that many kind of and ones and 3-point shots and whatever else. Could have been a 4-point play at one point, which the refs just weren't calling. They were kind of calling everything on the floor, but they finally counted that one at the end, which again was based on what they'd been calling earlier in the game. That probably should have been on the floor as well, but we'll take it. And again, Steph was rolling and fairly efficient in this game after the Nets had tried to, and must be said, early in the game, successfully double-teamed him on multiple occasions. Empire says, but Buddy and Moody need to go. The Moody issues continue to be really disappointing, I suppose, because he's had some excellent games and he's also had some absolute stinkers. In this game, he was 1 of 8 shooting from the floor, 1 of 5 from three-point range, only 1 or 2 from the free throw line as well, 4 points, 3 rebounds. He was a minus 15 in less than 12 minutes. You look at him and Quentin Post, who are 2 guys that we'd hoped were becoming regular starters for the Warriors. And based on winning this game, I wouldn't necessarily change it moving forward. They play Charlotte in what is a very early game on Wednesday or Thursday my time. Man, what time does that game start for me? It's like 5 a.m. I think. It's ridiculous on Thursday. Just checking it. who knows where I'll be with this COVID by then. It's 5 a.m. on Thursday for me. It's Wednesday 10 a.m. Against Charlotte at Spectrum Center, which again is another game you would think you should win, but third game in 4 nights, it's maybe slightly tricky as well. And nothing is really a cinch for the Warriors at the moment. But Moses Moody, he, I don't know, the form is pretty inconsistent at this point, and if anything, it's probably largely down, and he like springs up and has the odd good game. If you look at what he's done recently, he had the against Orlando 8 of 11 shooting, 3 of 6 from the floor, 20 points, 3 rebounds, couple of block shots, plus 23. That was an excellent game for him. But aside from that, if you look at his points wise over the last 6 games here, it's 5 points, 3 points at 20, 12 against Dallas. I suppose he was okay in that game. Played 30 minutes. He was reasonable, but 3 points against Toronto on 1 of 6 shooting. And then obviously 4 points on 1 of 8 shooting in this game. So to have a starter whose job is to hit, catch, and shoot threes and be reasonably efficient when it comes to shooting, to have that kind of guy go for 7 points on 2 of 14 shooting across a back-to-back is not ideal. And when you read out a number like that, you probably think it's fortunate that the Warriors went and split this back-to-back and went 1-1 and got this job done in Brooklyn. And obviously Moody's contract with that, 11 million or whatever he's on. If you are looking at a guy like Michael Porter Jr., if you are looking at any player essentially making between, let's say, 36 and $45 million, then that's going to be Moses Moody, right? Because that's going to be the additional salary you need to go from a player like Trey Murphy, who the Warriors could get by dealing Kuminga and let's say just Healed and obviously the picks, and maybe they get something slightly back from the Pelicans. And obviously a guy like Michael Porter Jr. who's making an extra $13 million, well, that's going to be made up, you'd imagine, by Moses Moody, because the next salary beyond that is Al Horford. And unless they're bringing a center back, I don't think they're going to trade Al Horford. What he's done in his 2 games since return has actually been fairly positive, and Quinton Post is kind of on the way down a little bit and still not shooting the ball overly well. He plays less than 5 minutes in this game. So I'd imagine they'll stick with Horford. I don't think they're going to necessarily move him, but I could certainly see Moody on the pathway out, especially if you look at a game like this and just think, well, we've got nothing out of Kuminga, like literally nothing. He was the only player not to take to the floor. And Steve Kerr said after the game that it's basically because Kuminga needs a heap of playing time, like to get into rhythm. Like he needs to play at least 15, 20 minutes to have impact, as opposed to a guy like Gee who can kind of come in for a 4-minute burst and have impact and play with energy and stuff like that, which actually makes a little bit of sense. Like, I know this happens to all players, but it's particularly the case with Kuminga in terms of his numbers and particularly his efficiency and stuff like that. Just skyrockets when he plays like 20, 25 plus minutes. He's not going to get that with the Warriors right now. So as frustrating as it might be for some, I can understand. And look, the Warriors have won now 4 of their past 5 games. So I just don't think Kuminga is necessarily going to be back in the rotation anytime soon. I genuinely think there's a chance he never plays a second for the Warriors again, which again is kind of sad to say, but it's just also true at this point. But you're getting 0 out of him. You're getting literally minus out of Moody because he's getting shooting 1 of 8 from the floor in this game. You're getting, I mean, I thought Buddy was okay in this game, but he definitely didn't necessarily, bang the door down and say, I've got to continue to be part of the rotation. He finished with, just having a look here, what did he played like 11 minutes in this game, which is, again, surprising given the Melton return. Buddy Hield had 6 points, 3 rebounds, a couple of steals in 11 minutes. I thought he was okay. He missed his 2 threes, but he was reasonably active. Again, I don't think that's enough to suggest he shouldn't be part of a trade. So Kuminga, Hield, Moody, you can go and get a $40 million player. You can go get a $38 million player in Michael Porter Jr. And again, if you're looking at what those guys provide you in this game and just suggest that, hey, you could go get a guy that had 27, 9, and 5 on 10 of 18 shooting and 5 of 9 from three-point range, who's 6'10", versatile forward. Will he put up those kind of numbers at the Warriors? No, but that's kind of the piece the Warriors need, is another genuine scorer, a guy that's now proven this season that he can be kind of a go-to guy offensively, who's not necessarily going to cost you a whole haul of picks in a way that like Trey Murphy the third would. Now, that's going to be the question for the Warriors. Would you prefer Michael Porter Jr., who you have to throw Moody into the trade, or would you prefer Trey Murphy, where you could probably keep Moody and have to obviously give up an extra pick or two to New Orleans? Based on Moody's form, you'd almost prefer going down the Porter route right now, even though his contract doesn't look anywhere near as valuable as Trey Murphy's. I suppose Murphy's also under contract for another 3 seasons beyond this, so potentially you could look at that contract compared to what Porter might earn beyond next season when he's only expiring. I don't know. You might prefer to go through Murphy there, but we know that's probably going to be options 2 and 3 behind Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Bucks got to win today. It's going to be interesting to see at what point the Warriors kind of put a full stop on the Giannis dream and say, okay, if Michael Porter Jr. is available and we only have to give up a pick or two, does that make it worth it when we're giving up Kuminga, Hield, and also Moses Moody as well? We'll wait and see. But MPJ certainly showcased his skill set and did no harm in terms of trying to prove to the Warriors that they're a team that should trade for him again with his skill set at 6'10". Just trying to figure out what else I've got here. Interesting closing lineup with Melton and Richard, both part of it, which, again, this game kind of frustrates me a little bit because now I'm looking towards Wednesday's game against the Hornets and I'm thinking, okay, who's out of the rotation again? Because there's just no way you can continue and sustain with a 13-man rotation. Like, that just isn't. I can understand it on the second night of a back-to-back, whatever. Horford's coming back in. Does that mean, like, I don't know, Post plays 5 minutes in this game. He was the player that played the least out of the 13, but he's also a starter, so you'd assume he would remain. So too Moody. That means who you're taking off in terms of the bench options. I think Hield is probably going to be on his way out again, I would imagine. Spencer, I understand the need for him, and people were incredibly frustrated that he didn't play against the Raptors yesterday because of the ball handling issues the Warriors had and the turnover issues, and some of the guys bring the ball up the floor, and it's just like, well, if you had Pat Spencer up there, at least that's another legitimate point guard who's not going to turn the ball over and panic in such situations. I'd still imagine that he's probably one of the first out, though. So is it Buddy and Pat Spencer out? And then who else? GP2, again, played okay in this game. I just think Trace has got to continue playing. Pods is obviously going to play. Melton is like, his minutes are going up. If you look at DeAnthony Melton, I think Steve said after the game that DeAnthony Melton's minutes restriction has now been lifted from like 20 to 24. And if you look at what he's done over the last 2 games against the Mavericks on Christmas Day and now this one, those minutes are certainly going up. He's part of closing lineups. I don't think he's necessarily going to start games anytime soon, but you could see him certainly being around that 24 mark. He played 24 on Christmas Day against the Mavericks, played another 23 and 32 off the bench in this game. Was effective again, was a plus 19 on Christmas Day against the Mavericks and was a plus 26 here. So DeAnthony Melton's impact on winning right now is huge, and therefore those minutes are going to continue to be right at the 24-minute threshold until that threshold moves up, and then we'll see him potentially play even more minutes than that, potentially in a starting role. We'll wait and see. It's probably going to be dependent on what the Warriors do at the deadline. Obviously, if they move a guy like Moody, then that opens up a spot in the starting lineup. Who takes that? Who's obviously coming back in the trade? Well, if a guy like Michael Porter's coming back in, well, that's another starter. What's their starting lineup then? Is it Steph and Jimmy and Trey and Draymond and Quentin Post? And then it's like a bigger starting 5. I don't mind the idea of that. I don't know. These are all questions the Warriors have to face. Like, they have won 4 of their last 5 games, but we still know here that a big trade is going to be coming at some point. Like, Kuminga cannot stay on the roster at this point. That's $22.5 million that you've got to use. I just don't think Buddy Hield's worth having on the roster either, to be honest. And therefore, that's automatically 30. You can get a $30 million player back so long as you're willing to throw picks in as well. I don't know. We'll just wait and see. User says, I think Pat is limited since he has a 2-way. Yes, but he can kind of keep playing, and then under the assumption that there is going to be a consolidation trade at some point where they do a 3-for-1, a Kuminga Hield, Moody for Porter Jr. trade or something along those lines. They open up a couple of roster spots and bang, Pat Spencer gets one of them. That would be my assumption, and therefore I don't think the 50-game threshold for Pat Spencer is too much of a concern at this point. I think that's about it, really, guys. Again, I'm struggling a little bit. I might do a little bit more writing and watch this Mavericks Trailblazers game, which is probably not overly enthralling. There's no AD to watch as a potential trade target for the Warriors. He's still out with that groin issue that he suffered on Christmas. So I might go watch that, do a little bit more writing, and then just lay down and relax and hope I don't get too much worse from this. Before I finish up, I just want to let everyone know as well, if you are after more content, I am opening up the Golden State with Mates Patreon to everyone for the first 2 weeks or through the first 2 weeks of January. So you guys tuning in, you can go and watch or listen to my podcast episodes that come out daily. I've also got daily articles covering the latest on the Warriors, latest news, information, rumors, my opinion, stuff like that as well that is coming out every morning US time. So you can go check that out. If you would like to become a member and obviously get access to that content beyond the first 2 weeks of January, that would be much appreciated, obviously. But until then, you'll be able to check out more of my work and more of my content. I'll try and keep going over the remainder of this week, even though COVID's trying to battle me a little bit. But I'll finish it up there, guys. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that'd be greatly appreciated. Follow me at POK252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. Again, thanks to those of you that tuned in. I'm not feeling great, but I'm feeling a little bit better with the fact the Warriors were able to get a win